Today, had the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Dr. Stephanie Bacon, PhD, who is a former classroom teacher, instructional coach, union leader with over 25 years of education experience. And we talked all about nervous system regulation and how that can impact literally every relationship, every aspect of our life. She is the founder of Ripple Effect, where she helps educators and leaders build social and emotional competence through embodied nervous system regulation, which she explains what that means, how regulating our nervous system can really help us even make better decisions, be more present in our life, and also directly impact those around us. It is such a powerful tool. And she really breaks it down to be so approachable and really give you some tips that you can take into your life today, get some things scheduled on your calendar, and really make it a part of your practice to be able to regulate your nervous system and feel the incredible impact that that can have. Dr. Stephanie, thank you so much for being with me today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. I am kind of obsessed lately with talking about the nervous system because it is really so essential to how our body can do anything, function in any way, and especially when we're talking about healing and being able to change our health, our nervous system is so important. So I'm so happy to talk with you about this. To start, can you walk us through a little bit of like what is nervous system regulation? What does it actually mean?
So first of all, I'll say I sound like a broken record too, because every time I want to talk about one action that could maybe make your life better or make your relationship better, I wind up coming back to regulate your nervous system. And then I would just add that, I'm not an expert. I'm not a neuroscientist, but I've studied the brain because I've been an educator for 25 years and I want to know how best people learn. And so that's what brought me to the nervous system. So essentially, when I think of the nervous system, I think of it as the part of you that wakes you up and gets you out of bed and helps you get your day going. And also the part of you that calms you down so you can sleep, like basic life functions. It revs you up and it needs to be used to calm you down to do essential life functions. So we think about regulating the nervous system, we actually want to think about it from both sides. Some of us need to improve that regulation and we struggle to get out of bed. And in order to get better at that, we have to find out what's underneath. Others of us are kind of living in that constantly overstimulated. We are overly getting out of bed because once we get out of bed, we are on a hamster wheel of things to do, and then it can make it really hard to rest. But ultimately, the state of our nervous system determines how we interact with the world because it also determines what part of our brain that we're using. And this is key. So when our nervous system is dysregulated, we are essentially using a more primal, lesser developed part of our brain. When I work with students, I call it our lizard brain. When we are able to get regulated, we are able to use both sides of our brain, use the more evolved parts of our brain, like our prefrontal cortex. That's why we see as young people develop, they make some bad decisions. Not only are their brains not fully developed, but they also haven't learned the skills to really get in touch with the more highly evolved parts of our brain.
So fascinating. Yeah. And I feel like so many of us, as you're saying this, are probably remembering some experiences, either ourselves, oh, yeah, there was that time where I was so upset I couldn't even think straight. And I was just like, I felt primal. Or if you do have kids or work with kids, just seeing how wild kids can get when they're dysregulated and how they can't even like look at you and they can't even, give you a one word answer to questions that is just like you can kind of see that going into that primal brain a little bit. So it's so interesting.
Absolutely. The best example if for parents out there is that if your child starts to act strange before the holidays, like before Christmas,
Mhm.
it's really common because they are so excited that really they cannot reach that front part of their brain and think it all the way through. So I was in the classroom for over 25 years and I would see that really great students would like be unable to produce the simplest things, forms of work. And I know at home, my own children, it would be like, how many times do I have to ask you to, put your backpack away. And it really what is that they're not being defiant at all. It's that excitement takes them into a part of their brain where they're not taking everything in. And that's happens through adulthood. When our nervous system is dysregulated, we can't take in the full picture.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's such a great key to then be aware of and be able to, rather than just yell at your child for being, not behaving well, being able to understand and then also be able to then work with them in a certain way so that they can do the thing, or at least give them a little bit more support with that.
Yeah, and I just want to like pause right there just for a moment because it's our kids, it's our partner, it's the person who's getting us our latte, it's the person at the DMV. Those everyone may be in some state of dysregulation. And due to kind of modern life, it's so much easier to become dysregulated because you have to intentionally regulate yourself. It's not kind of built into a more mundane lifestyle of the past.
Yeah. And that's so frustrating, right? When we don't know how to do that thing, but we need to do that thing to be able to think and act appropriately and really at our best, like show up as our best self. Um, I know that you also work with what you call social emotional competence. Is that where that's showing up, or kind of walk us through kind of what that means and how those play together?
Yeah. So I'm sure a lot of your listeners are familiar with social and emotional learning because you hear about it all the time. Schools have recognized the value of students learning how to interact socially so that they can be in classrooms and be more available for academic learning.
Mhm.
So, social and emotional competence is a framework built out of educational research that started. The phrase itself came out in like 2009 when a group of researchers was looking at outcomes in the classroom that were consistent. And what they found is that when a student experienced a teacher with social and emotional competence, they would have both better academic outcomes, better emotional outcomes. And there's even research that says that some attachment disorders could be remediated by a teacher who is socially and emotionally competent and had a good relationship with a child.
Mhm.
And so all it is saying, that word competence, all it means is that it's a person who can regularly show up with social and emotional skills. So foundational to that, the framework really calls out self-awareness. Are you aware of yourself? Other awareness. Can you take like a perspective of someone else?
Mm.
Decision impact awareness. Can you see how your decisions may impact yourself, others, the world? And then cultural awareness and sensitivity. So it's pretty basic. And it seems like, and before I started this research and then some other somatic practices, I would have told you I was self aware, but I wasn't.
Mm.
I was aware of my personality and my opinions.
Mhm.
I was not self aware. And so that's why, and this isn't included in the social emotional competence framework, which is surprising me. I know it'll get there. What I like to tie in is you cannot be socially and emotionally competent without regulating your nervous system
Mhm.
because it's really hard to be self aware when you're dysregulated. It's really hard to be aware of what's true for you when you're so busy that you can't really receive the messages in the body.
Mhm.
As you know, I'm sure 80% of the messages go from body to brain, but we think our brain's running the show,
Mhm.
right? So, does that help you understand social and emotional competence?
Absolutely. And that makes complete sense the way you describe it then of, yeah, you need to be calm enough and aware of yourself enough to then be able to have that insight and use it in a very specific way to then be able to impact others in that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like have that awareness to be able to spread and not in just like a brain way. Like you said, like we're thinking and like, oh, well, I know, their cultural standpoint. I know their emotional standpoint, but to really be able to show up for someone, I think in that way and probably like, and to have those outcomes that you're mentioning, which are amazing, to be able to help those children, whoever it is that someone's interacting with, I'm sure, to have our own regulated nervous system and be able to share that with that person too and help them feel calmer too is such a powerful thing.
Right, right. And so part of that is really, some people call it mindfulness, other people call it, a mindful practice or nervous system regulation. But one thing is just basically finding moments of solitude,
Mm-hmm.
which right now, a lot of times when we have a moment of solitude, we might check our social media feed, or we might remember that we need to order that thing and we'll quickly do it on our phone. And then when we're dysregulated and we're trying to get to that place of self awareness, it's really hard. And so when that happens, a lot of awareness breaks down because we don't get far enough. We get enough to notice we're angry, upset, frustrated, stressed, but not what is happening underneath. And that's when that blame factor can come in. So go back to that example I used at the beginning. When students or my own children would be dysregulated, not cooperative, then I'm like, what's wrong with you? You need to, or, become very like trying to fix their behavior when really the behavior needs to go back to the nervous system regulation. And then me as the adult in the situation, I need to get really regulated in order to say, okay, yes, I'm feeling angry and frustrated or whatever. Maybe I'm too busy. Maybe I need a break or whatever the thing is. But when we don't get fully self aware, we tend to blame our problems on others, and that takes away our agency.
Mm-hmm.
We can't fix it. And that's so disempowering, and it's just a cycle, right? But once you figure out that self-awareness is going to be that catalyst that allows you to figure out what's really going on so that you can really fix the problem.
Yeah. So powerful. And just in my mind, it sort of like changes the system then. It's like getting out of that loop that feels like it could be never ending, that, oh, there's this problem, and like being up on our head and thinking about it and trying to figure it out. It's like, oh, I feel stressed. I need to do something then to do something about that. And it can feel very like all these, like adding more to the system and just feeling like we have all these extra things we need to do, when, like you said, kind of just like dropping in and actually giving ourselves that solitude. And I love that you say that, because that's something that I tell my patients sometimes. I'm like, yes, do mindfulness. If that feels good, do some journaling, but also, or just do nothing. Like lay on your carpet for 5 minutes and do literally nothing. And that will honestly, sometimes it's the hardest thing for people to do and the most necessary, to just, like you said, don't all of a sudden remember that you need to order something or, do something else, but just be there. And it can so quickly, we can then just feel that sort of empty space that our body really needs a lot more of, rather than all the like busyness that we have nowadays.
Exactly. And so smart that you're asking your clients to do that, because when we think about our nervous system, it's always having input,
Hmm.
right? It's always getting tapped on. Here's the next thing. Here's the next thing to do. Here's the next thing to see. Here's the next thing to listen to. And so there's no room for it to speak, right? So
Hmm.
when you're asking your patients to take a moment of solitude, what you're saying is now you can receive the message from the body.
Hmm.
And it is really hard for people. Once you started it, that's the great thing, is you can feel the feeling, the aha. And that's how we change and grow when we have that great feeling. Oh, wait, it's actually this,
Hmm.
and that hopefully reinforces undoing the cycle.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the more that I have gotten into, doing this a better way, like calming myself down, I can then feel that sort of that itch of, okay, I'm feeling stressed out, and my immediate reaction might be, okay, I need to figure out all the things I need to do, or I need to go on social media, like somehow feed my brain some dopamine. And it's so tempting, but it's really just getting our nervous system, like you said, so much more input. Finally being able to slow down and not having that all that input, you can realize what your body actually needs and what it's asking for, which I think so often it's less, not more. Just having a little bit of like that quiet, calm time.
Right. And that's how we improve all of our relationships. And I'm talking our relationship to food, our relationship to exercise, our relationship to our children, our relationship to our parents, our siblings, our partner, is we have to slow down to figure out what's really going on. And that means we have to somehow eliminate the input, you know? And so what I encourage people to do is find a way to have some solitude, and actually like multiple ways, right? To regulate the nervous system. Really one way is probably not enough, because you need to think about, you know, different contexts are more elevating.
Mhm.
Parenting for me could just send me off the rails. And I think it's because I deeply care about my children, right? And so it's like I could be in the classroom for 7 hours a day, calm, and everything. Oh, you're so calm. Then my own son does something, and I lose control or whatever. Or in our partnerships, our closest relationships, our intimate partner, you can show up so calm everywhere else, and you do your yoga and your breath work, you take your walks and you're feeling great. Then your partner does something that scratches that wound, and you lose your mind. You're back to lizard brain in that fight, flight. And so it's really important that people find like multiple ways. I use breath work from 3 minutes to 10 minutes. I'm a busy person too. I take walks, but when I'm really keyed up, I listen to the most boring audio book of like psychology or philosophy that I don't even understand all the words. And that will re-regulate me. Hiking for a lot of people, getting some kind of vista, going for a walk where you have a view can give you like perspective, right? Journaling for a lot of people, humming. I love using humming with young people,
Mm.
and, because it's similar to chanting, and that can tone your vagal nerve that runs from head to toe. Um, so just having lots of options. And if something isn't working, then try the next thing. And then, of course, kind of stay aware of how it felt. It's not going to be like a quick fix all the time, but notice those shifts so you can reinforce. And at the very least, give yourself a pat on the back for not taking immediate action, for blaming someone else, for telling someone else to change because you're having this uncomfortable sensation in your body. I have said so many things to my kids and my partner that I wish I could take back before I learned how to regulate my nervous system. So at the very least, maybe it's 3 deep breaths. It takes you away from the lizard brain into the prefrontal cortex that just tells you not to speak yet,
Mm.
can save you, hours, days of uncomfortable energy.
Yeah. So powerful. And I love that you make it so approachable with, it could be something very simple and very quick. But then I love that you're recommending too having multiple tools, because I feel like, yeah, we need so many more inputs on that, the flip side of things. Like, we have so much input in terms of dysregulating things and all the action and all the busyness that distracts us away. And so I feel like having multiple inputs, especially if we're really already feeling like we need support there, to just have multiple input on the opposite message of, okay, we can calm down, we can take that moment. And I feel like it's such a like muscle that you're building then, in a sense of the more you do it, the more strong it is. And when those harder moments come up, where it is that, you're triggered by your partner, you're triggered by your child, that's the hardest time to practice that. And so I feel like the more you practice it when you're calm and in other situations, the more you're able to then have that split second moment, like you said, of just, okay, maybe I'm just not going to talk yet. Maybe I need to remove myself from the room versus just saying something right away. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly. And the bonus is when you go regulate yourself, you can step back into that conversation and co-regulate.
Hmm.
When you come in there and maybe you completely disagree with the other person's point of view, you can still validate it without agreeing. I know you're feeling upset because I forgot to do this. That makes sense. immediately you're regulating their nervous system, because when people feel heard, then they get regulated, right? They can take a deep breath. The other thing that we use all the time in education is just if someone's dysregulated, we just stand by them and take a deep breath. And as you know, I'm sure you see this in your practice, you come in and take a deep breath, and then your client or your patient will do that same thing.
Mhm.
So it's really when you regulate yourself, it's a 2 for 1
Mhm.
because you go out into the world differently. Your energy is different. You're more receptive to perspectives other than your own, which is a socially competent skill and also a regulating skill.
Wow. It's so cool. And I feel like, yeah, knowing this is such a superpower then to be able to know the power that we have, like our nervous system has on other people's nervous systems, for good or for worse. So, we can then show up in a certain way and then just wait and be patient and not have to do anything, especially when it's a child. I feel like if anyone else feels like me, sometimes you feel like, oh, this is my responsibility. Like I need to somehow help them or fix them or, take them out of this uncomfortable feeling. But in reality, just being there with them,
Mhm.
not even saying anything, but just taking a deep breath, like you said, can be so powerful in teaching them how to regulate and also just helping their nervous system regulate.
Yes. And then in those situations, you can actually invite them into their own knowing.
Mm.
When I was terrible about this with my kids until they were probably like 14 or 15. So I just get my heart broken watching them be so upset, right? And I'd want to fix it for them. And I would be there for them, but I was also like fixing it for them. And it didn't work that well, right? So actually, what we know is when we, as the adult, or we just as the person in the space, say, I can validate you. I see you're really upset. I understand that. I felt those same feelings too. It's okay to feel that. I don't know what else to do. What do you need? Or when you're ready, what do you think you want to do about it? When we stop knowing, it actually allows people to step into their knowing, and that will be the action.
Mm.
Us suggesting things, us, calling the parent of the child to bully them will not fix it.
Mhm.
And often we dismiss how much wisdom is in young people. It's there. It's there. And when you let them connect with their bodies, a lot of times they know what they want to do.
Mhm.
And then you can be relieved that you don't have to come up with the solution.
Yeah. That's so incredible. And that's really, yeah, like being able, especially for young people. I mean, this goes for adults too, who are just, learning this later on, but especially for kids as they're learning, giving them that agency, I'm sure is so empowering then in other areas of their life. That's so important in their development to be able to show them that they have the wisdom that they need and can draw on that when you're not there. Ooh, that's so powerful. I love it.
Absolutely. Like one of the most important parts of social and emotional competence is stop pretending to know.
Yeah. I
You
have to
don't
share
have
this
to.
story. It's not exactly on this topic, but just to show how wise children can be. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I was putting my 4-year-old to bed one night, and he looked at me and he was like, "Mom, it's really hard to be a parent, isn't it?" And I was just like, "What? What did you just say?" And the awareness he had, and I don't know if he heard it somewhere or what, but I was like, wow. I was like, "Yeah, it can be really hard, bud, but this is the best job I've ever had." Like, I could give him that love in that moment too, and I was just like, "Wow, they're so wise." It's really incredible. So absolutely, like, giving them that chance to flex that wisdom is really cool.
Yeah, that's a beautiful story. And what we have to remember is that humans are designed to thrive. So he's observing his world all the time.
Mhm.
People are learning all the time. We don't have to force it. They're learning. We can trust it.
Yeah, I love it. Well, I mean, you gave us so many amazing tips already. Anything else that you would leave as far as tips for someone who is trying to navigate learning how to regulate their nervous system, be more on top of this, maybe implementing some practices there?
I would definitely say it doesn't have to be perfect. Start somewhere and just notice. The first time I noticed the impact of nervous system regulation, I didn't even know what my nervous system was. I just started taking my friend's yoga class. And I noticed when I went to work the next day, I was taking longer and deeper breaths and feeling better. It doesn't have to be perfect. And the other thing is to know that really you are in control of your experience, right? So once your nervous system is regulated, then you can reframe the story. Okay. But your nervous system is designed to protect you from really legitimate dangers, physical dangers, right? And so it's going to want to say, you got to get away from this, or you got to shut down, or you got to go hide, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right? And so when you take just a few moments to regulate your nervous system, you can get out of that part of you that's trying to survive and get into that part of you that really wants to thrive and be happy. And so just doing things imperfectly, you don't have to meditate every day, but man, when you're feeling really uncomfortable, maybe that's the time to try. And then also, like you said, if you're curious, you want to build some of that stamina, or I coached baseball for many years. So like build a muscle memory so that when the ball comes to you, you don't have to think.
Mhm.
Try a few practices, maybe a mindfulness app, maybe a breath work app, maybe listening to that one book that chills you out, or maybe that song, and then do that thing, regularly. And if you're anything like me, you might need to put it in the calendar and have it pop up.
Mhm.
And, but I really think it can be done in not tons of minutes a day. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I 100% agree with scheduling. It's one thing I had to learn actually the past year. I started really realizing if I don't put on the schedule, it won't happen. I could put on a to-do list. It's just, it's going to sit there for a long time. And so actually scheduling it and I tell people too, when you schedule it, you're prioritizing it. So if this is really important to you, which I think for a lot of us this really is, like we want to feel really good, we want to be able to thrive, just scheduling something, even if it has to be changed or it doesn't always happen, putting it on the calendar can be so powerful in actually making it happen.
Exactly. I think the last thing I'd want to just play with this idea to put it out there is that a lot of us go through our days and we have like either mini conflicts or major conflicts. And we have these coping mechanisms because they're uncomfortable. The beauty of regulating your nervous system and then learning how to have conversations through self awareness, other awareness, decision impact awareness, you can really take all of those conflicts and create connection. And that could be in your workplace, it could be with your children, your family, your partner. It's that you have to learn how to first be self aware. Then, when you're more self aware, you're more empathetic because you get real deep into your own mess from, oh, that's messy. I'm so not perfect. No one else is going to be perfect, right? That allows you to understand and receive their mess. And when you can validate that, you can turn that rub, that friction, that disagreement into connection. And that feels so good. Then I won't even have to remind you, and you won't have to remind your people because they'll be like, man, it felt good when we had that conversation where it was like we're speaking from heart to heart, not from lizard brain to lizard brain, not from I've got to be right, from I want to understand you.
Mhm.
And so that I think is the ultimate beauty is when we get those skills, we can really have less conflict and more connection. And then lastly, my work is about these are the skills of the education of the future.
Mhm.
This has to be foundational for students of the future to be tackling the problems we made
Mhm.
because our brains have created beautiful and amazing things. Imagine what we can create with the wisdom of the body. And so I'm hoping that through the social and emotional competence framework or embodied social and emotional learning of educators, we can really access that part of humanity so that we can go into the next generation with this skills that we really need now that we have other tools to do some of the other things like AI.
Mhm.
And so lastly, I would say like right now we have movement where a lot of individuals get access to coaches, right?
Mhm.
As adults, we sign up for coaching, we sign up for group programs, we sign up for masterminds to make ourselves better.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone deserves that. And that's why my goal is to get it into our educational institutions.
Mm-hmm.
I want every kid to have a coach, right? And that starts with having educators that can regulate their nervous system and know some of those competencies so they can help students learn to have those conflict, starts as a conflict, ends as a connection kind of conversation,
Yeah.
because it's possible.
Yeah. Here, here. I don't think there's a single person that would not agree that that would be such an incredible tool for all of our educators to have and all our kids to have. That's incredible. Well, where can people find you, Dr. Stephanie, if they want to learn more about your work, work with you, support you?
Yeah, my website is Ripple Effect embodied.com. And then you can find me at TikTok at Ripple Effect Embodied SEL. That's saying put the social emotional learning in the body.
Mm.
And then Instagram Ripple Effect with Dr. Steph. I'm on LinkedIn under Stephanie Bacon, PhD. So that's where people can find me, and some courses coming soon. And I'll just continue my work with school districts and school leaders.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely link all of your contacts as well in the show notes so everyone can find you and follow you and learn more about you.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was so fun. It's so fun to talk to you and learn about the great work you're doing through your podcast. So
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your insights. Because again, I think this is going to be so powerful for everyone listening.
yep.